Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the live stream. I hope you're all very well. I think my microphone is a little bit low. Let me try and bring it a little bit closer. Hopefully that's a bit better. Or let me check the settings. For some reason, I'm not sure what happened here. Maybe it's okay. Let me know in the chat if the audio is very low. So welcome everyone for tonight's live stream. Let's see who's on. We have Tiny Demolition Lover. Great to see you. Let me just me good. Okay. Good evening, everyone. Let me just check the audio. Seems a little bit low on my side, but I have a cookie. All sounds good. Great. Okay, so we have Tiny Demolition Lover. Great to see you. Adrian, great to have you on. Raven 1983 Witch, great to see you. Norflinger, great to have you on. Chris, great to see you. R Dub, great to have you on. Will C, great to see you. Claire Sweet, great to have you on again. Hope you're well. Enzo the God, great to see you, Enzo. CGM, great to have you on moderating. Sock Juice, great to see you. Hi Max, and hello to all our sentient beings and otherwise. We have Chatty Rat, great to see you, Chatty Rat. We also have Roshin, great to see you. Killer, great to have you on moderating. We have SD White, great to see you. We also have Katrina Bryce, great to see you, Katrina. Hope you're well. We have Tilly Mans, great to see you. Rooster, great to have you on. Tom Linden, great to see you. English Viking, great to see you once again. The Ministerian, great to have you on. Internet Peoples, Mega Hairy Bomb, great to see you. Derek, great to have you on. Alex, great to see you. And so many more. We're up to 134, so I have to say hello to everyone and wave to everyone. So hope you're all very well today. Of course, we're going to talk about a little bit about Ukraine, cost of living, Brexit, of course, and some other issues we can try and shove in where I can. So hope everyone is very well. I see Reagan Elite is on, and I see Marcel, great to see you, and you, great to have you on too, and Tom. So just want to start off with Brexit. Not a lot happening on the Brexit front, it seems. The British government. Alexis, thanks so much. Ciao Max, come stai? I'm very well. Hope you're well too, Alexis. Great to have you on. Thanks so much for that super chat. Cole, great to see you. Not much happening on the Brexit front. The British government have decided to. They were going to. I wasn't able to follow it because I have a lot on my plate at the moment. But I was hoping to respond to. So there was a rule, a change to customs documentation, customs requirements coming in. I think yesterday, where it would change from the title on the customs declarations, United Kingdom, to Great Britain. So Northern Ireland will be excluded, and this upset a lot of Brexiteers and unionists in Northern Ireland. And I think what's his name, Jeffrey Donaldson, the leader of the DUP, put in a complaint about it, and I think the UK government are going to change it back. But it's something, once again, a lot of this material isn't read until somebody actually reads it, and then somebody highlights it, and then the politicians jump on it. Can you turn up your volume a wee bit, Max? I'll try and do that. Let me see. Bear with me, guys. Okay, I see the problem. So I'll turn it up here. That should be a bit better. The Brexiteers are crumbling. That's what happened. Hello, Monkeytron. So, unrelated to that, a number of Brexiteers, including ones who voted for the withdrawal agreement, started a court case a few months ago to have the Northern Ireland Protocol deemed illegal, and they lost the case. So they appealed it, and they've lost the appeal as well. And the Court of Appeals had said, look, the protocol is lawful, it's legal. They were trying to suggests that it breaks the laws of the Act of Union. It breaks the Act of Union. It breaks international law. It breaches the Good Friday Agreement. And of course, these are people who seem to have very little understanding of the law, and they're trying to challenge an international agreement that was, I believe, and I think I'd be correct in this assumption, it was read through with a fine-tooth comb by probably the greatest legal minds in Europe and Britain. The most expensive lawyers, I imagine, read through the withdrawal agreement and checked if there was anything out of place, if there was anything that could be challenged, and it seems to be watertight. And a bunch of people, including people who voted for this withdrawal agreement, seem to have a problem with it. So it says here, Northern Ireland Protocol is lawful, Court of Appeals rules. The Northern Ireland Protocol of Brexit is not simple or straightforward, but it is lawful. The Court of Appeal in Belfast has ruled. Northern Ireland's Chief Justice, Dame Siobhan Keegan, and this has been some Brexiteers in Northern Ireland have been complaining about some of the judges. If you look at her surname, Keegan, Siobhan Keegan, some Brexiteers, unionists, were complaining that maybe she is biased against the protocol, which is absurd. She's a justice. She's supposed to rule. If you have a problem with her, then you need to take that up with, I don't know, is there an ombudsman for the courts, or who do you go to if you have a problem with the judge? You could also, take it up to the UK court, which of course the UK court is going to rule in favour of the protocol. I don't, you can try it in Belfast. If the court in Belfast say, look, there's nothing illegal here, I don't think you're going to get any further if you go to the Supreme Court in London. But I don't know how these things work. But some unionists have complained about nationalists on the courts, in the courts. Anyway, along with two other judges in the court, concluded that the protocol had not illegally trampled the Act of Union 1800, which establishes Northern Ireland's place in the United Kingdom, or elements of the Northern Ireland Act 1998, which followed the peace deal that year. Actually, the Act of Union doesn't mention Northern Ireland because Northern Ireland didn't exist at the time. It mentions Ireland. So it's the Act of Union of Great Britain and Ireland, not the Act of Union of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. So you can't really talk about Northern Ireland in the context of the Act of Union because Northern Ireland didn't exist until 1922. They were considering complicated matters related to the constitutionality of the protocol following the High Court judgment in a case brought by a group of unionist politicians, including Jim Allister, the head of the traditional unionist voice. Others involved in the case were Brexit supporter Ben Habib, who I've mentioned on many occasions, former Labour MP Kate Hoey, who's blocked me on Twitter, and Clifford Peoples, a member of the Public and Loyalist Pastor. In dismissing 5 grounds of appeal, the Court of Appeal found that the government had acted lawfully, that international treaties were not a devolved matter, and that decisions made by the democratically elected national government did not bind future governments centuries or decades later to their decisions. So what was decided in the past can be changed in the future, and even if the Act of Union, which I don't believe is neither here nor there, but if the Act of Union was to be used as some sort of standard, well, governments can overrule it later on. It's not set in stone. What we say is that there is a hierarchy of constitutional statutes, and that the Act of Union, which established Northern Ireland, sits at the top of that hierarchy. This concept of hierarchy of laws has never been litigated before. It was touched upon in the case over HS2, the high-speed train service in England, but it was not fully scrutinised, said O'Hare, of MacIver, Farrell. Once again, O'Hare and Farrell. People like Jim Allister not probably too happy to hear these surnames. Keegan said she and 2 other judges agreed that the argument that an overly literal interpretation of laws made in the 1800s does not require complete parity with new laws governing trade between Great Britain and Northern Ireland. And I think the Act of Union doesn't mention a huge amount of doesn't go into a huge amount of detail about trade. The court concluded that the phrasing of the European Union Withdrawal Act 2018 did not impliedly repeal the Act of Union as suggested by the High Court. The question arises whether it is an effective repeal of Article 6 of the Act of Union. We cannot see that it is in strict terms. This is due to the fact that the protocol is not codified as a permanent solution and is drafted in flexible terms. So you have, the protocol is something flexible while the Act of Union is something quite rigid. But the Act of Union cannot predict the future. And also, all of this is a bit pointless because the parties in Northern Ireland will have a vote in 2024, whether to see if the protocol is renegotiated. It's looking more and more likely that there's going to be a majority in support of the protocol. I think support for getting rid of the protocol is decreasing by the day. And by the time 2024 rolls around, I think support for getting rid of the protocol would be very marginal indeed. So just to hear what the 3 stooges had to say. No, we have no sound. Let me bring up the sound.
The whole of the United Kingdom. Perhaps people have been seeing it very much in the context of Northern Ireland, but it's much, much greater than that. And that's why we're looking forward to the Supreme
My God, I can hear nothing.
Court. But I'm also, as someone who did campaign for the Belfast Agreement, I personally feel that we were duped. And the whole issue of consent has actually now been shown to be meaningless.
So she's here saying about the idea of consent, sorry. But the people of Northern Ireland were not consented when they voted against Brexit. So she's talking about here, what about the whole issue of consent? Consent being that you need to have both sides, the Unionists and the Nationalists, on board if you want to implement this. And of course, the majority of the Unionists don't want to implement the protocol. But the issue of consent went out the window when Northern Ireland wasn't consulted when it came to the implementation of Brexit. Northern Ireland wasn't consulted on whether Brexit would go ahead or not. So once again, you have these Brexiteers who, if you turn around and ask Kate Hoey, well, what about Northern Ireland? She'll say, well, Northern Ireland doesn't matter when it came to Brexit, but Northern Ireland matters when it comes to the implementation of the protocol. But it's the UK government she should be complaining to.
And the idea, too, that the court has actually said that my human rights are not affected in any way by the fact that laws now will be made in a foreign institution
But you wanted to end that. So she's complaining here about laws being made in a foreign institution. But that's the cause of Brexit. A Brexit that you campaigned for and you still support. None of these people have turned around and said, actually there are 4 of them here, I said 3 before. None of these people have turned around and said it was a mistake. We actually thought Brexit was going to be something different. We're sorry. We want to undo Brexit. No. They are fully supportive of Brexit. They just don't like the type of Brexit that they got.
Foreign court that I will have no say and no one in Northern Ireland will have any say in it.
But you don't want any say. You had a say before. There were members of Parliament, members of the European Parliament from Northern Ireland. But Brexit got rid of that. Why are you complaining that you don't have a say anymore?
So I think it's a serious situation which we will only be satisfied when our Supreme Court of the United Kingdom, Great Britain and Northern Ireland.
And Killer makes a very valid point. This is not about human rights. This is about trade. Has Kate Hoey's passport been taken away? Has Jim Allister's Britishness been undermined here? Is Ben Habib able to complain about the protocol? Yes, none of their human rights have been infringed upon at all. This is about goods moving from Great Britain to Northern Ireland. It's about the single market. It's about checks taking place or declarations. See, once again, it's not, the big issue is not actually checks. The big issue is declarations, paperwork, okay, bureaucracy. So this paperwork has to be correct if certain consignments are to arrive in Northern Ireland. The checks are being reduced actually, but the real issue is the paperwork. But it's not, there's nothing stopping these people from being British or wanting to live in Northern Ireland, or being, you know, this is not driving a wedge between Northern Ireland and the rest of the UK. But then even if it were, that would be a consequence of Brexit that they have yet to renounce.
Actually rules, and that's where we're going to go to as soon as we can.
Sorry, I didn't hear what you said at the end.
The United Kingdom, Great Britain and Northern Ireland actually rules, and that's where we're going to go to as soon as we can.
I think she wants to go to the Supreme Court of the United Kingdom, maybe. I'm not sure. It's about loyalist feelings. It's about feelings, yes. But, you know, if these were people who said, look, we were against Brexit, we didn't want Brexit, we knew it would be damaging to the union, we campaigned against Brexit, then they could actually have something to say. But all of them supported Brexit, campaigned for Brexit, voted for it, and still support it. It's like, I'm not going to go into analogies, okay, but it's really pathetic. It's like somebody telling you, don't jump, you know, don't put your hand in the fire. And then you put your hand in the fire and you get burnt, and then you're like, hey, wait, I got burnt. Yeah, I told you that's what would happen. And then you instead of actually realizing, okay, it was a mistake to put my hand in the fire, they say, no, keeping my hand in the fire is not a problem. It's you telling me that it's a problem. That's the problem. Oh my God. Okay, let's move on. It's enough Brexit for a moment. So let's move on to the issue of Ukraine, of course, and what's happening with the refugees. Homes for Ukraine, what I need to do to host refugees in the UK. So almost 89,000 people in Britain have offered homes to Ukrainian refugees in the first hours of the government scheme. And a government minister suggested it was a success because the website crashed. Okay. Well, that's a very optimistic way of looking at it. Maybe it crashed because the system was not a good system. Maybe it crashed because so many people are using it and that's a good idea. I don't know. But I wouldn't always go with the line, if the website crashed, that's a good thing. Anyway, it says 89,000 people have to bring in for the first few hours of a government scheme to allow families and individuals to bring them to the UK. The scheme means those who do not have family connection to the UK can come to the country on a visa for the first time. Once again, these visas, you know, just allow people to come in without a visa. Wouldn't that make more sense? What do Britons have to who want to host a refugee have to do? So you can host a refugee family if you live in the UK, regardless of your nationality. Non-Britons must have at least 6 months leave to remain in the UK. The first step is to apply through the government website, which almost 90,000 people have already done. The applications can also be made on behalf of charities, faith and community groups or businesses. There will be some light touch vetting of hosts, probably not the full DBS check. More detailed guidance is expected to be released in the coming days. Hosts will receive £350 a month tax-free for the first to up to 12 months, with one payment made per address, not per individual. So this is, I think this is something really good. The idea you host an individual, you host a number of people in your home, if you can do that. And then there is there's the money to cover that. It's not a huge amount of money, but it is certainly a help to cover some of the costs. A lot of people would do it for free. So the idea of having an extra £350 a month, I think, is definitely not an incentive to do it, but it's definitely a help. How will Ukrainians be matched with a British family? So the government will not be matching British hosts with Ukrainians. Those who are approved as hosts will need to identify the Ukrainians they intend to host, and then they will make the visa application naming their intended hosts. However, in practice, many of those who are offering to host Ukrainians simply will not know anyone directly that might wish to come here. There are a number of charities who are asking people to register their interest with them, and who can undertake some of the matching process. They include the Sanctuary Foundation, Refugees at Home, Room for Refugees, Reset, and the World Jewish Relief. What will Ukrainians need to do to enter the country? Once hosts are approved and they are in touch with the Ukrainian individual or family you wish to sponsor, they can fill in the visa application. The process is not yet open. It will start on the 18th of March, which is in a few days' time. After a change of rules in the last week, those with a valid Ukrainian passport will be able to apply online. But without those documents, many fleeing may have left behind. Refugees have to visit a visa center in another European country, including many bordering Ukraine, such as Poland, Romania, and Moldova, but also in other countries like Belgium and France. There are no visa centers in Calais, despite many Ukrainians turning up at the port hoping for help to enter the UK. No, like, why didn't they actually open a center in Calais? Because people would imagine, well, okay, I want to go to the UK, then I go to the place where it's most like the closest connection to the UK. Like, a lot of these offices just require people, a few computers and printers, maybe, and scanners, documents to scan documents, or some equipment. You could rent an office. You probably have some office space in Calais that you could use. I don't know why they're not doing that, and they're sending people to Paris instead. What are refugees entitled to when they come to Britain? Those who are granted a visa will be eligible to work and have access to state benefits and public services such as schools and healthcare. Charities and other community organizations will be organizing to help refugees across to access the benefits and services they're entitled to. The majority of those arriving are likely to be women and children, with men aged 18 to 60 barred from leaving Ukraine in order to support the military. What funding is available for councils? Local authorities will receive £10,500 in extra funding per refugee, and more funding will be available to ensure school places for children. However, some local councils have expressed concern that further funding is likely to be needed in order to meet the needs of children likely to have experienced severe trauma and those with caring responsibilities towards children and elderly people. This is receive an extra 10,000. Yeah, it's like that's a once-off of 10,500. You know, if there are individuals who need, long-term care, that's not going to go very far. It should be, this should be the base, and then on a needs basis, it should be increased. Given that most of the men had been ordered to stay in Ukraine. What do hosts have to provide for refugees? Hosts are expected to provide a private room rather than a shared room. The government will make clear the £350 is not intended for a full rental payment, more a goodwill gesture to cover additional costs of having a family use your home. The scheme does not expect hosts to cover food and other necessities. That should be covered by refugees themselves who have access to the benefit system and are able to work. However, it's not. There's nothing to stop hosts from offering food and whatever else they would like to offer. So, I think, on the whole, this is something very good. I think this is to be commended. Once again, I'm not somebody who's just anti-Tory for the sake of being anti-Tory. It's not perfect, but it's much better than what was on the table before. There was nothing on the table before. And the idea that, British people want to open the doors. I think many people would open their doors irrespective of the money. I think this is a good idea. It's important that it's not just about money. It's not just about providing a roof over people's heads, but also providing the support necessary, because many people are suffering psychological and even physical trauma from the war. And I think that needs to be understood by those hosting families, but also the government itself. Dr. Johan, thanks so much for that super chat. So I want to cover another story here. This is one of the videos. Thanks so much once again, Dr. Johan. I did a video today, Hero of the Week video, and I featured Marina, who was a journalist who stood up at in her studio. I think it was her studio or one of her media outlet studios, and protested against the war. She was subsequently arrested, and she was fined 30,000 rubles, which works out at about £250. Not a huge amount, but many people were very concerned that this slap on the wrist would have been the prelude to something much more serious. And it says here, Russian journalist feared missing after on-air anti-war protest is pictured with her lawyer. Marina Ozovyanovkova, the Russian journalist who interrupted a state TV broadcast by holding up a sign protesting against the country's invasion of Ukraine, has been photographed with her lawyer. There are fears that Miss Azoyanokova is gone missing following her stunt, after a human rights lawyer said she had not been heard from for several hours. However, a photo surfaced on Tuesday afternoon of her with someone understood to be a lawyer. Sky News believes the photo from the encrypted messaging app Telegram is genuine. During a live broadcast on Channel 1 on Monday evening, Miss Azovanakova, who is thought to have worked for the company for years, walked out on the set behind the presenter with a placard denouncing the country's invasion of Ukraine, a move the Kremlin has described as hooliganism. It was a risky protest in a country where independent media has been blocked or shuttered, and it has become illegal to contradict the government's narrative of the war. The UN's Human Rights Office has called on Russian authorities to ensure that she does not face any reprisals for expressing her freedom of expression. I don't know if this has been updated with the fine, or if something else has happened since then, because some of this information I have is a few hours old, and I don't know if things have changed. Roisin, thanks so much for that super chat. She got a fine of about £250 and sacked. Could have gotten worse. So she just needs so thankfully nothing. So just when I saw the story of her being missing, I thought it came after, but it seems it came before the trial, where she received the court case. So then we can move on from that. So I presume she's too high profile to do anything more. She needs to get out of Dodge quickly. Yes, she's a brave lady. She ended her career, but it could have been much worse. She could have been sent to prison for 15 to 18 years, or much worse, she could have disappeared permanently, as many people do. Thanks, Roisin, for that super chat. Okay, let's move on. Staying with Ukraine, there's some updates here. Let me read some of your comments before I get to the updates. Very brave of her, yes. I'm anti-Tory, especially after the last 12 years, says Chris. I think there's a lot of anti-Tories on this channel. People inside state media are likely trying to protect her from going missing. I'm sure she didn't have, if she didn't have connections, she would be gone. I think so too, Reagan Elite. She was released with a fine, yes, too high profile. I think if it was, you know, we've seen so many other people protesting on the street. If I think some of those wouldn't have gotten off so likely. But of course, she needs to look over, keep an eye over her shoulder as she goes around, because you know what the FSB or the KGB are like. She's been added to Putin's. I hope not. Okay, so it says here, just some of the stories I'm not going to go through all of them, but it says here, the US is giving Ukraine over $186 million in additional aid to support refugees fleeing the country and displaced within Ukraine amid Russia's ongoing war, US Secretary of State Antony Blinken said. A second... So yes, so there's this just says Ukrainian journalist Olashenka Kozinova was also killed in the attack that killed Fox News cameraman Pierre Zakharensky and left Fox News correspondent Benjamin Hall wounded. So it's this story of a Fox News cameraman killed in Ukraine. He was attacked. There, as you can see, journalists carry very clear markings on them with the word press, and obviously he had the same, but he still got shot. It just seems to be getting worse. This is also maybe very concerning as well, not in the short term but in the long term. It says here, MPs across the continent have voted to expel Russia from the Council of Europe over the invasion of Ukraine, in a further sign of the Kremlin's disentanglement from the Western diplomatic order. So the Council of Europe, it says here, so the MPs from the Council of Europe's 46 member countries. Don't confuse the Council of Europe with the European Union. They're completely separate. The Council of Europe is a number of countries, including members of the European Union, but also Britain. Britain is a member. The United Kingdom is a member of the Council of Europe. But this idea of working together on issues of human rights, laws, the environment, things like that, it's a sort of loose organization, but it's devised to develop or to foster cooperation between countries in Europe that are not members of the European Union. Also, the idea, one of the things also when it comes to human rights, is the idea of ending capital punishment. Now, with Russia out of the Council of Europe, it's more likely that they will impose things like they will resort to capital punishment, which they had in the past, and that's quite concerning. Ironically, it says here, after the government's submittal, after the Russian government submitted a formal letter of withdrawal, Leonid Slutsky, head of the International Affairs Committee of Russia's lower house of parliament, accused the council of Russia-phobic hysteria and claimed it had become a satellite of NATO and Washington. Of course, writing on his Telegram channel, he said Russia would need to denounce the European Convention on Human Rights, adding, "But don't be afraid, all rights will be guaranteed in our country, necessarily and unconditionally." Yes, unless you complain about Putin. You can complain about the European Union, you can complain about most European leaders and not be thrown in jail over it. In Russia, it doesn't really work like that. Then we have some there is one image I wanted to show you, which could be something providing a bit of hope. I don't know if it's going to load here. It mightn't be here, but no, it's not here. But what's going to, for example, Odessa, the port of Odessa, the Russian Navy is planning to attack Odessa with an amphibious force, and it's probably going to end up like the airborne assault that they had some weeks ago, which just resulted in an absolute disaster. And it's likely that the more troops Putin drops or forces to march into Ukraine, the more they will return in body bags, and it's just getting worse and worse for the Russians. And I think we're getting close to a stage where it's I think it's even beyond the stage for the Russians. It's an unwinnable war, but it's just going to become more and more a war of attrition. Less, I think, for the Ukrainians, but more for the Russians. Verti, thanks so much for that super chat. Greetings and salutations, Max and people. Thank you so much for coming on and that super chat, Verti. I hope you're well. Since your video has been posted on social media of Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky meeting with the prime ministers of the Czech Republic, Poland, Slovenia today amid Russian war on Ukraine. Let me read some more of your comments. Russia needs to split up into a number of countries, for example, Siberia. I think that's what's going to happen, you and me. I think what's the end result of this is that Russia will eventually break up. Because if the economy has collapsed, a lot of these... So what's going to replace Putin? I think people with money and people with guns are going to be the ones that will rule. And I think these people are going to see, okay, I can mark out some territory for myself. I can hire a militia, and I can become a warlord, and I can be, in a sense, a king of that area. And I think that's what's going to happen if Putin eventually... In a sense, he's holding the thing together. But if he goes, I think we're going to see a power vacuum, and it will be filled by likely individuals. It doesn't actually have to be warlords, but people who have a lot of money and the ability to finance an army. And there's going to be, a lot of weapons lying around that can be used. And I think we're risking a civil war in Russia. And that's going to be a disaster. Because the economy at the moment is not going to be able to sustain parts of the country. Look at what's happening in the east of Ukraine. These two republics, they're basically set up in order to maintain a Russian foothold in the country. Yes, they're pro-Russian people, but how long will they remain pro-Russian when the money stops coming? When Moscow says, I'm sorry, we have no more cash for you. What are they going to do then? So I think you're going to start to see a fragmentation. And that's if Putin goes. I think it requires Putin's removal at some stage. Release the opposition from prison and make an election. He's not going to do that. Boris and Lebed, Max. There's an insane amount of weaponry in Ukraine right now, and that's a concern as well. It's a concern not just in Ukraine, but also, not just in Russia, but also in Ukraine. Russia is filled with oil and gas and minerals and wheat. And I think a lot of people are looking at that and saying, okay, if Putin wasn't there, I'd like a slice of that. Many Russians already dislike Moscow. And that's what you could see. You could see the country splitting up into different parts, and regional governors or whatever creating de facto states in a sense. Russia has enough natural resources to provide UBI from from it for all your. Yeah, that's a nice idea, but unfortunately, there isn't a political motivation for UBI in Russia. I think. Yeah, there's so much money there. It could, instead of allowing people to buy $500 million yachts, can you imagine if that money was instead invested in the people? Crimea, since the last takeover, heard recently that what's been happening there, shocking. What has the Western press been? We unfortunately we received no information coming out of Crimea. You would imagine that there would be some sort of maybe even resistance against the Russians there, or at least an understanding of how the people of Crimea feel about all of this. But we're hearing nothing. So there's complete media silence there. How will the Russians handle a system without money? Just to open up the old manuals. Barter system. If you have no money, then you have to offer something in return. And we've seen what's very interesting is you can't buy Russian gold at the moment. Gold merchants in Russia are trying to sell it off at half price, and no one's buying it. Normally when there's a crisis, people run to gold. Oh, well, gold is safe. Gold is secure. Always buy gold. That's what they say. Not in Russia, because no one's buying it. They can't even. It's not to the stage where they can't give it away. But gold merchants are taking a huge hit on trying to sell it. Western press has been on media matters on Ukraine due to the gas pipelines silence by their governments. Blue jeans will be very expensive in Russia again. Russia is already some devolved on paper federal subjects with their own parliaments, etc. And probably, thanks so much, Ministerium, for that super chat. And they're probably going to become much more devolved as we go forward. So, just want to go to the next story. This is interesting. Staying with Ukraine and Russia.
Chelsea Football Club's owner, Roman Abramovich, has been spotted in public for the first time since being sanctioned over his ties to Vladimir Putin. He was seen in the VIP lounge, of course, at Tel Aviv airport, where he departed for Istanbul on a private jet. It's thought the billionaire then flew to Moscow. Our home editor, Jason Farrell, is in Istanbul for us. Hi, Jason. What more do we know? Good morning.
Hi, Kay. Yeah, well, this is the first time he's seen, as you say, since those sanctions have been put on him on Thursday last week in Tel Aviv airport with wearing a face mask around his chin, getting ready to get onto his private jet to fly here to Istanbul. But he didn't stay here very long. He arrived in the afternoon yesterday, and then he flew off to Moscow in the early hours this morning, we understand. So he isn't here anymore.
Maybe he's gone to speak to his customer.
What could he be up to? It's quite an interesting question. We know, for example, that Russian oligarchs are obviously trying to get their money out of Europe. He has a super jet which has been in Montenegro Bay, and I looked at where it was last night on Marine Tracker, and it's now heading down the coast of Albania. Solaris, that super yacht that's worth 460 million pounds, which has a helipad and even its own missile detection system, is apparently on its way here. So was he checking out places perhaps that he could keep the yacht here?
so he's looking around. He's going to different countries saying, "Can I park my yacht in your bay?" And they're like, "Yeah, but it's going to cost you." Because I can't park it in Italy because, well, recently they took one of my friends' for 500 million euro yacht. Can't park it in France. They'll do the same. So Turkey, can I park my yacht there? Israel, can I put? No, probably not there. They're so desperate. He has to fly to different parts of the world, begging them, can I park my yacht there? And can I sail it there first? I really hope that if any of these yachts become within a mile of the coast, they're immediately seized.
But we also believe that he may have been trying to arrange some of the sale of Chelsea Football Club. He has been in talks, we can confirm, with Muhsin Bayrak, who is a...
Jackie says he had 2 super yachts. What the heck do you do with 2 super yachts? Like, what the heck do you do with 1 super yacht? 2? This is insane. Like, can you imagine if he said, look, I have all this money. What if I do something nice? Like, I keep $1 billion for myself, okay? I can still live quite well with $1 billion, but the rest of it, I could house the poor, end homelessness, things like that. At least end homelessness in a city. People would worship you for doing something like that. Marcus Rashford, a millionaire, what does he do? He feeds hungry children. He campaigns to feed hungry children, which is even maybe not better, but maybe has a bigger impact campaigning for it than actually working in the soup kitchen. Why doesn't Abramovich do something like that? No.
A businessman here. He's a Turkish billionaire, and we've spoken to his press officer this morning, who says that he did meet with Roman Abramovich, but not on this visit, last week, and he has plans to meet with him again. So that is an interesting development, but obviously Roman Abramovich can't sell Chelsea Football Club because his assets have been frozen, and the British government have made it very clear that any sale of the club, the assets would not go to Roman Abramovich. But it may be, obviously he started this negotiations at the beginning, at some point last week, and it may be that he might still be continuing those negotiations in the hope that at some point he can get those assets back. This Turkish billionaire made his money in energy. He also is involved in cryptocurrency, and he also has development business here in a Turkish resort. So it is possible that that's part of the reason why he's been interested in Turkey. But of course, the world is getting much smaller for Roman Abramovich and all of these oligarchs.
Oh, my heart bleeds. Their world is getting smaller. And this yacht fetish is out of control. I agree. Yeah, this idea of yachts, why a yacht? Like, it's not even something you spend a significant amount of time on. Like, most of these people probably spend maybe a day or 2 days or maybe a week on this thing throughout the year. The amount of money that is invested in these things is just absolutely, it's just a status symbol. I have a yacht. I have 2 yachts. I have a super yacht. I have a mega super yacht. It's really pathetic. These yachts are for them to survive. Well, perhaps all choke on their pollution. Yes, I think that the Tories are trying to grab houses in Kensington. The Brits, sorry, are trying to grab houses in Kensington. Chelsea, like the Tories, were happy to spend all their ill-gotten gains. The gun gains of Putin. Chelsea versus Newcastle last weekend. Some Newcastle fans with Saudi flags. Some Chelsea fans were chanting Abramovich's name. What is wrong with these people? I'm not saying that we should ignore what the Saudis have been doing. The Saudi regime beheading people in public. I know I shouldn't be talking about that. It's a bit ironic me complaining about that. Of course, I don't support what was done. But aside from that, it's like what James O'Brien was saying, the footballification, the tribalism. I don't care what my side does. I don't care if they break the rules. I don't care if they break the law. They're my side. They're my team, and I will always support them. It's a type of brain rot. If a super yacht sank in the Channel, do you think it would be illegal for the RNFL to rescue them? Oh my God, guys, did you see So a number of people this week, yesterday I think it was, a number of people began a squat in one of these billionaires' homes in London, and within 10 minutes a SWAT team had arrived. It was about 12 or 13 vehicles arrived with a team with shields, riot shields, and they entered the building. Now, I was looking online, and many people have been confirming this. If somebody squats inside a building, a complaint has to be made to the police. Then a court order has to be issued, and this takes about 2 weeks normally. A court order has to be issued, and then a bailiff, not the police, come and remove these people. The police provide support, but the court order is delivered by the bailiff. Now, if there's somebody who is a legal expert, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but when there is someone squatting in a building, if they haven't caused any damage, you can't take them out. You can't just send the police and remove them. But for some reason, a Russian billionaire who is not living in the building at the time, okay, it's not like he has been threatened. He or she is in the room and they're frightened and they're calling the police because somebody has broken into their home. It's not their home, it's a house that they own. Somebody has come in, is squatting in there, protesting, and within 10 minutes, the Metropolitan Police come and remove them. Or attempt to remove them. They even used a crane, a cherry picker, to try and get in. When you understand, how did that work? So, an alarm goes off. Somebody from the security service calls the police. The police check. Oh, who's the owner of this? They get on the blower to Boris Johnson and say, "Is this somebody who donated to the party?" Yes, they did. Okay, get half the Metropolitan Police down there now and get those people out immediately. But somebody's been mugged on the street. Doesn't matter. Send those police down there. It's absolutely, it demonstrates one rule for them, another rule for everyone else. And I actually said on Twitter, what you should do is, if your house has been burgled, call the police, try and fake a Russian accent and say that you're an oligarch and that you donated to the Conservative Party, and hopefully they'll send somebody down immediately. Bought and sold for Russian gold. Also, protesters said that they weren't staying there, just protesting. Plus, the Met Police said that they would always do this for a burglary. Yes, my arse. These houses will have their alarms ring directly to the Met Police, I expect. It's probably two bells. One goes to the Met, another goes to the Conservative Party headquarters. Just to reinforce, make sure that the police do their job. I wonder if the Met might have been a false flag stunt. I don't think so. It's very difficult to organize something like that. Place was empty of people. Don't think ever stayed there. Most of these properties are bought just to launder the money. Like, I have a huge amount of money. I need to do something with it. Buy a property in Kensington and then flip it later on, or just it's somewhere to park the cash. Most of these properties, nobody lives in them. And I saw something similar, disgusting sort of videos where you find them on YouTube, of these homes in America, for example, or New York, worth $150 million, $200 million, $250 million for a flat apartment somewhere in New York City. And nobody lives in these. They're like just places for people to park cash. Maybe corporations or very wealthy individuals. They never actually, some of them probably never even see the buildings. They just buy them just so they can launder their money. And you should see them inside. They're absolutely amazing, but it's just all a big pile of, it's also depressing because there are homeless people on the street, and you have this apartment that's worth $150 million. 5,000 square foot or whatever. Anyway, let's move on. Let's take a short break because we're about just over an hour. So I just want to show you this funny video and then we'll continue.
You tweeted in August 2020 that Lebedev is a first-generation immigrant Britain can be very proud of. Do you still think
Well,
that?
I think we can be proud of the people who have settled in this country with lots of money and have done things with it. So I see no reason to doubt anything I've tweeted there, Kay. You can't cancel me. But of course, you're asking me because of the recent reporting around Lord Lebedev's peerage. Yeah. Well, again, you have to understand that Lebedev and our Prime Minister are great friends. They met when Lebedev threw a party, and parties are a key feature of our government. Some people have made something about the fact that the Prime Minister met Papa Lebedev after an important NATO meeting and it was some sort of security breach. But again, he was clearly in party mode. And that is the Prime Minister's business language, if you will. Sometimes he may have made some mistakes. But that's the lull of the party. I mean, I don't know if you've heard about Gaddafi's candlelit dinners, but they were really something apparently. So the point is, Evgeny Lebedev was vetted by a House of Lords nominations commission.
Yeah, but if the security services say it's a security risk, and the Prime Minister keeps pushing and pushing and pushing and saying, no, I want him to be a Lord, surely if our security services, who are the best in the world, say, I don't think so, he may well be a security risk, surely we should take notice of that.
You are right that our security services, our national security services, are well beating. They are great, but they can't stop me from being sued. And I'm not in Parliament now and I don't have parliamentary privilege. And they are a bit libel happy, these Russian oligarchs, as is their right as British passport holders. And, I think they should, by all means, people should carry on using our world-beating courts. In my personal opinion, Abramovich shouldn't be sanctioned. If anything, he should be knighted for his services to the legal profession. I mean, this is a man who has poured millions into the bank accounts of our lawyers in an effort to financially cripple nosy journalists and publishing houses, and is so modest he hasn't even taken any credit for it.
Oh my god.
This is now day 12.
Okay, back to Ukraine. I just wanted to finish with this about what's happening with Russian forces. Russian forces have been attempting to encircle Ukrainian cities, and it's not going very well.
20 of the war in Ukraine. And to go through developments with me, I'm joined by defence and security analyst Michael Clark. Now, we haven't seen much movement, have we, from Russian forces over the last week, but it's clear something's happening in Kiev. We've seen heavy shelling there.
Yes, Kiev has suffered some rocket attacks, and that's the first of what might turn out to be rather more. The Russians haven't got around to the south of Kiev as quickly as we thought. They're still making hard work of it. But one of the reasons that they're fighting so hard for these towns and cities in the northwest, like Irpin and Bruk and Brovary, is that those towns are just about a ring about 15 or 20 miles away, which is just about the range of Russian artillery. And once they go past those towns, they can bring their big howitzers in, not the rockets, but the howitzers, and they can threaten to just reduce Kiev with good old-fashioned artillery shells. That's what the battle is really all about up in the northwest.
Yeah, and then when you look at the other advance of the Russian forces, we can see the north and south now, but they're not quite joined up, are they? So obviously that it's clear that's the strategy now.
Of course, they want to join up these areas because they want their armies to unite, but they've got to go further west than that, because what they want to try to do is actually encircle the Ukrainian armies, and to do that, they've actually got to get outside of them. So they've still got a bigger job to do to literally move up from south to north, somewhere west of where they now are. That would be quite a big job. And ultimately, they've got to move up the valley of the Dnieper, and they've got to do something about Dnieper. That would be a real problem for them.
And let's now move further south. What's happening there?
Yes, Mykolaiv. Mykolaiv is the gateway to Odessa. Mykolaiv is a big, important port, very big area. It's being defended ferociously. And as the Russians have moved out of Crimea, which is their secure base, quite short lines of communication, they're attacking Mykolaiv. But Mykolaiv is a place that's on the southern Bug estuary. So it's a place that's a delta. There's a great deal of water there. And to any attacking force, that's a problem.
So let's just take a little look a bit closer there. We've got some satellite images that will show us now that bridge in more detail.
Yeah.
So talk us through the geography. Obviously, as you mentioned, a lot of water here.
Yeah, there it is. The city occupies these peninsulas. It's based effectively to the east of the great river. This is the Southern Bug River in English. And there is the Vavavskia Bridge, about a mile long. Any attacking commander will look at this map and say there's an awful lot of water to get over here, and the chances of taking that bridge intact, if they get into the city, are extremely remote. I'd be amazed if that bridge was not extremely well mined by the Ukrainians. They'll blow it before they withdraw if they go over it. So this is a real problem. And when they get over Mykolaiv, when they get over the South Bug estuary, it's still 80 miles to Odessa. So they've still got quite a lot to do.
And they have a long way to go, and we have seen, soldiers that are deeply demoralized. We have seen how the equipment is not fit for purpose, and we've seen massive surrendering by the Russian forces. The longer this goes on, the worse it is for the Russian war effort, and we've seen how Putin has been reaching out to the Chinese, it seems, in order to get help, because it's, this is his war in his neck of the woods. It's 2 weeks in, or just over 2 weeks in, and it's an absolute disaster. And I don't think the Chinese want to get involved in this. They might provide him some support, but it's not going to be enough. It's not going to help him in the long term. And perhaps the biggest concern is that, as the reporter here said, it's about moving his heavy artillery forward in order just to shell Ukraine, to Kiev. I think that's his goal at the moment. It's not really to hold territory, it's just to destroy everything. Unfortunately, it seems that his plan was originally, it seems, to take Kiev, replace it with a puppet government, and then get out and hopefully run the country from there. But he's had to move to another plan, and the other plan, it seems, to be to just destroy everything, to raise the cities to the ground. Russia cannot win, no. Oh, sure, it's great to see you on the stream tonight. Hope you're well. Lots of marshes around Kiev too, and I've seen numerous pictures of tanks, Russian heavy tanks, stuck in the mud, but almost swallowed up by the mud. And that machinery is not getting through. Another problem is that the supply lines, the convoy that we saw some weeks ago, that's been stuck outside Kiev at the moment, the Ukrainians are actually not attacking it, because it seems, if this is correct, and it's very interesting strategy or tactic, but maybe it's more of a strategy. It's like so what's happening is it seems to be the supply line for about 7 Russian divisions. So a huge army is dependent on this supply line. By allowing it to try and move forward a little bit by little bit, it's actually creating a false hope for Russian commanders who are reliant on it. If it was destroyed, then the Russians would have to find some other way to get supplies to their soldiers. They're hoping that they can get this one moving. But the fact that it's not moving means that soldiers in other parts of the country are reliant on whatever equipment, whatever ammunition they have. And there was also a ridiculous story, I don't know if it's true or not, but Russian soldiers were told to leave behind ammunition and food and pack, wait till you hear this, pack their dress uniforms, because they were expecting to march in Kiev within a few days. So they've surrendered. I don't know if this is true or not, but it would be probably the worst mistake in military history. The idea, we don't take ammunition with us, we leave ammunition and food behind because we're going to prioritize our dress uniforms. So guys, I want to move on to the next topic, of course, the cost of living crisis. I want to show you this this clip first.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Research by Scope showed that 1/3 of disabled households were already living in poverty last year. NatSend's recent report on health and disability benefits, commissioned by the government, further illustrates the devastating impact of insufficient financial support. To ask the ministers what they have to say to disabled people who are already struggling and are now living in fear of worse to come.
Well, Mr. Speaker, we are spending record amounts supporting those who are disabled and...
It's always, we are spending record amount. He never actually says this amount of money per person. We're spending 100 million here, 100 billion here, 10,000 here, 10 billion here, 10 billion there. It's never actually, this is what people can access. This is the amount of resources per person. It's all very vague language, and it's, of course, it's not for the people who actually need it. It's for the general public and their consumption. Look how much we're doing. Look how much we're spending.
Relative to the OECD, I think in excess of the average of other leading countries. But I know my honourable friend, the Work and Pension Secretary, has a particular programme of support in place to help those who are disabled move into employment, and plans were announced earlier this year.
So people who are disabled, we're going to move them into employment. But if people who are disabled have been looking for work, they would have moved into employment, because those who can't move into employment will not move into employment. It's absolutely absurd. So we're going, yes, there are people who are disabled who can't work, obviously, because if they could work, they would be working. Who can't work, we're going to set up a program in order to what? Force them into work? Punish them in order for them to work? Complete and utter disconnect. But then Rishi Sunak is worth about £150 million, so I don't think he understands the trials of ordinary people. So staying with the cost of living crisis, says here, tenants face having to find an extra £1,000 for 2022 rent and bills. It goes on to say tenants already struggling with the cost of living crisis typically face having to find an extra £1,000 this year to cover higher rent and essential bills, research shows. The estate agent Hamptons said tenants' finances face a record squeeze as higher rents and energy bills increases combined to pile more pressure on households in Great Britain. Recent research from other property firms such as Rightmove has already shown that rents have been rising at their fastest rate on record as tenants make plans for a post-pandemic life jostle for properties. It is the latest monthly lettings index. In its latest monthly letting index, Hamptons said strong growth led to the average household in Great Britain spending 42% of their post-tax income on rent in 2021, the highest proportion since records began in 2010. So if people are spending 42% of their income after tax, 42% of their income, how are they supposed to put anything aside if they were, for example, saying, okay, I'm going to rent, I'm going to save, and then I'm going to buy a property in the future? But if 42% of your income is going on rent, then you're not going to have enough, you're not going to be able to put anything aside, because rising prices include energy bills. So if energy bills are eating up, you end up having 42% on rent. Maybe before you had 10% on energy, on electricity. Well, that's gone up to maybe 15 or even 20%. So you're going to have less money for food and less money if you eventually do want to save some money for a mortgage, which is getting more and more difficult because you also have prices of houses going up as well. You know, what was it some of the Tories said, or Tory commentators said? Well, just give up on your avocado toast and then you know, and your cappuccino, and then you'll be able to buy a house. See, and most of these people who say this, their parents bought their first house for them. So you have these Tories who would say, look, poor people, give up your cappuccinos and your avocado toast, and then you can buy a house like I did. Well, actually not like me, because my daddy or my mommy gave me money to buy the house, or bought the house directly for me. But you know, I'll teach you how to to be frugal. Oh my God. When other costs such as gas, electricity, council tax, broadband and TV license are included, it meant a typical household spends 52% of their post-tax tax income on rent and bills in 2021. So there you go. Over half of the income goes on essentials, but that does not include food. So essentials just to be in the house. Now, people will say, "Oh well, what about broadband and is it necessary?" Yes, because if you want to apply for a job, or if you want to get trained or things like that, you need an internet connection. Internet is no longer a luxury. You know, maybe it was 20 years ago, but today it's a necessity. And I'm an advocate, you know, for a UBI. Bitter Max, not much. I'm bitter. No, I know Sean is joking with me. Or I don't know if it was about me. With council tax, my rent comes to significantly more than half of the income after tax, more like 55 to 60%. How I'm not going to ask how do you do it, but how are people supposed to do that? How are people supposed to survive, to put something aside? Because, you know, it's been drummed into us when we were children. Maybe people of my generation try to save up for a house. It's possible if you cut costs, if you put money in the bank, if you save a little bit every week, every month, you'll eventually get to a stage where you can buy. That was 30 years ago, even a little bit more. It's not possible today. It's impossible today. The only way you can buy a house today is if you already have money, or if you have very rich parents. Who said UBI? Universal Basic Income. My brother did the bloody house. I'm on the HAP. I don't understand that. I should understand, but I don't. My rent out of my benefit is 60% of my income as someone who is disabled. How are people supposed to get by? I really don't understand why governments don't understand this. But then if you look at who's in charge, especially in the United Kingdom, who's in charge? The Tories. Most of these Tories, I think it's about 99% of Tories in the House of Commons went to private school. In order to go to private school, you need to have rich parents. If you have rich parents, you're going to have it much easier in life. You don't struggle the way other people will struggle. Inflation kills savings. That's a very valid point as well. So any money that you do put in the bank, it'll be worth less this time next year. So if you have £10,000, you put it in the bank, this time next year, it's worth 6% or 7% less. So it's whatever you've saved throughout the year to bring that up to that level, it's already gone. Not gone, but a lot of it is gone. If you're able to save £10,000 over 10 years or whatever, every year it's worth less than £10,000 or less than the money you put in. A pound today is not a pound tomorrow. Don't mention the UBI. Disability has increased by £8 since 2010. It should be connected to inflation. And as I pointed out on this channel, if you look at your local Tory MP, you'll see how they voted against linking benefits for disabled people, those who can't work, those who are ill. They voted against linking those benefits to rising prices, linking them to inflation. That's immoral. It's disgusting. Any Tory MP who did that should be dragged in front of their constituency office and made to answer why. Why did you vote for that? Their constituents should ask them, why did you vote for that? You voted to make people who are already desperate worse off. You voted to make people who are losing their income every year. Their income is going down every year. You voted to make those people worse off. How can you live with yourself? How can you sleep at night? Number 3, thanks so much for that super chat. Money talks, democracy walks. This is so true. You know, if you're a Russian billionaire, you can bypass democracy. You can, you know, funnel the letter. The letter goes right to Boris Johnson. The request, whatever request you want a law changed, don't worry, we'll do it. If you want a rule broken, torn up, don't worry, we'll do it. We've seen it. We've seen how £10,000 to your local MP will win you a PPE contract. It goes on to say that the figure is set to climb further as the cost of living crisis deepens. By the end of the year, Hamptons predicts that the average rented household will be spending a record 54% of their post-tax income on rent and bills. This will typically cost them an extra £1,008 this year alone, while with their total outlay set to rise by £17,914. Up from £16,906 in 2021. The 2022 figure includes the estimated £4,015 for household bills compared to £3,350 in 2021. Private rents are still rising, with the new report putting the average monthly cost for a newly let property in Great Britain at £1,118 in February. This was 6.7% or £70 higher than 12 months earlier. So rent is going up as well. So what was probably the case is landlords are paying more for services, maybe whatever services they're providing, and they're saying, well, it's or landlords themselves are looking at their own bills and saying, look, cost of living is going up for me. I need to pass that cost on to the tenant. This is where you need rent support. This is where government needs to step in and either put caps in place or to provide some sort of support for tenants, financial support. The annual rate of rental growth has gradually come down over the past few months. In July 2021, it was running at 8.7%. The Camptons and Hampton, Campton, that's completely different, Campton. And Hamptons expects it to slow to about 2.5% by the end of the year. However, the latest national figure disguises the wide regional variations. In southeast England and outer London, average rents are 1.5 to 3% higher than they were a year ago, and in the southwest they're up by 13%. So if you're living in the southwest, your rent went up 13% in the last year. During the coronavirus pandemic, some tenants quit London and other big cities after deciding they wanted to live in the suburbs, the countryside, or near the sea. Others are planning to do so. And that's if people can do that. So I think there are two things driving people out of the cities. One is the rising cost, but also which I think was something positive maybe during the pandemic, was the ability to work from home. Smart working. If you can work from home, you don't need to live in the city centre where it's very expensive, and you have, you know, a room. And I've shown some pictures online, and I've seen some crazy pictures online of properties, for example, in Dublin, absolutely ridiculous prices. I saw one which was about €6,000 a month for, I think it was a 2-bedroom, one bathroom apartment in Dublin. I don't remember where in Dublin, probably in Dublin 2 or in maybe Dublin 4, I'm not sure. But it's insane. I'm so old, I remember when junkies would steal car radios. That the particularly galling thing was knowing that they were selling your 1,000 quid's worth of stereo for 50 quid. The same with the Tories. 10,000 for refugee per council if you house 10 people. they still get $350 rent for you. 7 years ago, when I was renting, it was £850 per calendar month, just outside central London. I imagine it's double that at least now. It's harder to argue, though, because pensioners are seen as deserving in Tory rhetoric. They are, yes, which is interesting. Magic, thanks so much for that super chat. Government is instructing councils to say that we are receiving a rebate of £150 council tax, which it isn't. It's a scam, like the NRG loan. And I'm so sorry to hear that. And thanks so much once again, Magic, for that super chat. I think this is a huge problem. What you have is the government saying in Parliament or to the public, yes, we're supporting councils, we're providing people with support, and then what they're doing is they're cutting support for councils, and they're also cutting councils' ability to raise taxes as well. So councils end up with less money, which is there to provide services to people in need. Those people in need have to go longer without those services, or go completely without those services. And the fact that they're instructing councils to say that they're receiving the extra £150 or the rebate. It's really sad how you have this government who just don't care. It's about punishing people. I think it's like creating. I think they want to create as big a divide as possible between those who have money and those who do not. And they will say to those who have money, vote for us and we will protect that. I think it's a bit like, the older generation with their homes. They'd say, normally right-wing parties would say to the older generation, look, your home means everything to you. And we'll protect that. We won't vote for us and we'll keep out, the socialists or whoever who want to come and take that from you. They want to sell it off. They want to nationalize everything. And we're going to protect you. And I think they're able to convince normally the older generation to come out and vote on issues of fear like that. No, they moan about scroungers parroting Tory politics of envy. Max, it's far from Dublin 2, Dublin 4. It was I was reared. Had an odd number, Dublin 5, outside Northsider. Now living in County Meath. Even County Meath has gone up in price to a crazy amount. If you're looking for a high house rental price, come join us in the Netherlands. Average sell prices have risen to €387,000 in 2021 from 322,000 in 2020. Not even talking about before that. Not even talking before that. It's insane. I can imagine in the Netherlands, the land is very limited, so you can't expand very much unless you expand inland. But yeah, it's insane. And then how are people supposed to afford that? 387,000, almost close to €500,000. Only people who have much in excess of $500,000 will be able to afford that. I think Richard is onto something here. Tory policies thought up by Sun readers having a couple of pints in with their spoons. Damn foreigners coming here, stealing our jobs and our women, or not stealing our jobs because of Brexit. But they never say it was because of Brexit. Wait till you see Amsterdam prices. Ooh, it's probably like Venice. I live near Venice. I don't live anywhere near, not close enough to Venice to suffer the prices. But here near Venice, about 25 minutes by train from where I am. it's insane as well. But then you're paying to live inside a museum, basically. Quite ironic, really, that it's the Tories that are forcing those old folk to sell their homes to cover the cost of care stays when the old folk can't look after themselves any longer. And I think the Tories look at it as they've served their purpose. They voted for us. Now they're probably too old to get down to the polling station. So if we throw them under a bus, well, you know, we can always tell them about, look at those foreigners coming over, for the ones who we've thrown under a bus but who can still vote. I think this is maybe the policy. It's like, you know, we can throw all the old people under a bus. The ones who wouldn't vote for us anyway. Some of them probably are not going to be able to come down and vote for us next time. They're too old. And the ones who can vote, well, we can just pump them with, you know, anti-immigrant rhetoric, or scroungers, or homeless people, you know, or immigrants, or any, you know, foreigners, immigrants, refugees. And this is something I'm afraid that's going to happen, is the welcoming of the refugees at the moment is very strong. But you'll start to see the likes of GB News, Talk Radio, Farage and others starting to eat away at that support, saying, oh, okay, when do they go back? Oh, haven't we done enough? Oh, look, and they'll find somebody, maybe one refugee or someone who got involved in some trouble, and then they'll say, oh, look, that's what we've done, that's our punishment. You know, we welcome them in and that's how they treat us. And it's going to create, I guarantee it, watch it. I'd put money on it. Within a couple of months, they'll turn on the refugees, like they did on the Syrian refugees. Remember the images of that boy on that beach? You know, so many people wanted to do something, and within a few months, you had the Daily Mail and others flip, saying, "Oh, you know, we need to control them. That we shouldn't be allowing them in. We need to do something about it." Can't afford to live in Ireland. In Luxembourg, there are no homes under 400,000. The average must be 650,000. It doesn't cost. Like, why does it cost so much? It's market, of course. It's market driven. It's not the materials cost 600,000, because it wouldn't cost 600,000 to build some of these houses, okay, or apartments. It's the market. It's there are so few people, so few homes, and so many people. And if you have constructed it, you can sell it off. And of course, the sad thing about this as well is that, you know, the older generation were able to buy these for almost nothing. And then now the younger generation, who are in a more difficult position, who don't have as secure employment as their parents or grandparents, are in a situation where they, first of all, they can't afford them because they're too expensive. And the second is, even if they could afford them, the banks wouldn't give them the money, because while you're on a 0-hour contract, or the contract that you have, you know, you're spending too much on rent, or the money you're receiving, well, you know, is it a secure job? Will you have it in a few years' time? Are you too much of a risk? New homes in Luxembourg are all 1 million plus. Who is buying these homes? Okay, guys, we're almost at the end. I just want to cover another few of these. Just one more of these stories, and then we'll. Just on the cost of living, staying with the cost of living, I don't like talking about these things, because I know it's not a nice story to cover, but I think it's important. It says here, disabled people facing impossible choices to survive in cost of living crisis. Disabled people are facing impossible choices in order to survive amid perfect storm of soaring energy prices, increasing fuel and food costs, and cost to government support, charities have warned. As Magic has pointed out here, the way that the government are saying, yes, we're giving you money, but in reality they're not. It's always about forcing more and more people to rely on charity. Let the charities do the heavy lifting, and then we can claim the glory. Look, we're doing so much to help people, and then we're not. The government are not doing it, so people rely on charity. The charities do a wonderful job, but they're charities. They're not supposed to exist. I've said this before. If a charity exists, it means government has failed. You cannot say, and I extend this to this idea of patriotism, where you have these Tories with their Union Jack, ties or masks or flags behind them, and they'll say, yes, I'm proud of my country, I'm proud of the flag, I'm proud of the Queen, I'm proud of this. I would love to ask them, are you proud that there are food banks? Are you proud that the number of food banks is increasing? How can you be proud of your nation if it allows food banks to exist? And I'm not proud of my nation because if one food bank exists, it means government has failed. If government has failed, it means we have not put enough pressure on government to do the right thing. We have voted in people who will say one thing one day and then focus on something else or do something different the next. Let's talk spring. Gareth, thanks so much for that super chat. Sorry I'm late to the party, Max. I was busy at a meeting with my Tory MP doing not Russian things. How are you? The message is paid for by Russia. Thanks, Gareth. So good. It's a good thing you are not doing Russian things. Great to have you on. Hope you're well. It goes on to say here, as the UK steadies itself for a rise in increased energy bills next month, at the same time as state benefits are cut in real terms, leading disability and poverty charities including Scope, the Joseph Rowntree Foundation, Leonard Cheshire and the MS Society have said that disabled people and their families will be put under severe financial pressure. They warn that disabled people could be pushed to use food banks, and unwashed soiled clothes could be in order to pushed to use food banks and unwashed soiled clothes in order to prioritize keeping life-saving medical equipment such as ventilators running, as well as other vital goods. Disabled people typically have higher energy needs than the wider public, while being more likely to be in poverty. And I think this is another thing that needs to be, this idea we're going to provide everyone who's on universal credit, we're going to provide them with this support. But it doesn't take into account many disabled people who have higher energy costs because they have to stay maybe, as this has said, maybe a ventilator, or they need electric wheelchairs that need to be charged, or they need to, to stay in their home where they need, if it's cold, they can't get up and walk out, can't go for a walk to warm up, or go for a jog or something to warm up, or go to, a community center maybe where there's heating so they can spend some time there. They have to stay in their home, so they have to heat their home, and it's more expensive. These are very simple things that government should know about. Why aren't they doing something about that? Una Summerson, head of the policy at disability charity Contact, said some disabled children need life-saving equipment that is powered by electricity to survive, such as ventilators and feeding pumps. Electric wheelchairs, stair lifts and extra washing due to continence issues can be cut back on either. Can't be cut back on either. They are essential to quality and safety to life. So disabled households are going to face impossible choices. We have huge concerns how families are going to cope. That's why there needs to be more pressure, and I really hope that the Labour Party and other parties will continue to put pressure. We saw the clip earlier on about from Fox, I think her name is, a Labour MP, raising the issue in the House of Commons about these. Of course, the response from Rishi Sunak was, yeah, whatever. Yeah, we're spending loads of money. That's not enough. I really wish people like Rishi Sunak could be dragged out of his, cocoon and brought to visit people, brought into their homes, stay with them for a few hours, realize these are the people on the receiving end of my policies. Maybe I hope that they have a heart. I hope that someone like Rishi Sunak has some sort of humanity within him, deep inside, okay? If we dig far enough, maybe we'll get to some sort of humanity. But you have the power to fix these problems. You have the power to make sure that especially disabled people, disabled families have that extra support to cover these extra costs. Because there's no point saying, yeah, we're going to give them an extra £50 a month or something like that. That's not going to cover it. If energy bills are going up through the roof and these people have to rely on the energy more than other families, then they should have that extra support, that special support. A government that can pay hundreds of thousands for lawyers to save their own leader, yet can't scrape together the cash to help disabled people in need. How proud am I to be British? Well said. I think I got some sort of Paddy's Day bonus on my dole. That's enough money to get one roof tile cleaned. Well said, Sean. One roof tile cleaned. I know I'm laughing because it's just, yeah, it's like it's not in regards to the cost of living, it's not going to go very far. Thanks so much for that super chat. I'm of the opinion that that anybody who decides benefit policies should do 4 months on the money to each side of the increase. Well said, Magic. Yeah, I agree with that. You have the Tories, as I said, and we keep coming back to the same problem. You have people like Jacob Rees-Mogg or Rishi Sunak who could not be further away from the lives of ordinary people, making decisions for ordinary people. That's the problem. It's like if I never visited Ukraine and somebody said, okay, I want you to implement policies in Ukraine. That's nuts. I've never been there. I don't know how the country works. I don't know what people need, what they don't need. I don't know what the requirements are of those people. I'm not saying that they can't. I'm saying that they don't want to. Rishi Sunak, if he wanted, he could go and visit these communities. He could visit these charities. Listen to them. Tell them, okay, what do you want me to do? But that's not what Tories do. Tories listen to whoever donates to them. They sit down with those people, especially if they're Russian billionaires, and say, okay, what can we do for you? Thank you so much for your investment in our party. We like to give something in return. Maybe they even have a brochure. That would be something. If somebody wants to do that, that would be wonderful. I just thought of it now. A Tory party brochure for donors. If you go for the gold, the gold standard or extra platinum version, you get dinner with Boris Johnson and at least three policies put through in your name or in your pseudonym if you prefer. I have to joke about this because otherwise we cry. Charities are urging the Chancellor to use the upcoming spring statement to introduce support for disabled people to survive the cost of living crisis. There is concern that the government is planning to bar over 200,000 people on disability benefits from claiming discounts to heat their homes, in a move that the poverty charity Turn to Us warns could push many disabled people into extreme hardship when combined rising prices and other funding cuts. So you have rising prices and then you have the funding cut. Thomas Cave, Policy and Public Affairs Manager at Turn to Us, said millions of people across the UK are facing a tight squeeze on their incomes as the cost of living continues to soar. But for disabled people who already experience additional living costs, the impending rise to energy prices could push many to extreme hardship. It goes on to say that there, in a survey of 3,300 carers, 42% thought that in the coming months they will not be able to heat their homes to the safe level, and 32% worry that they'll have to use a food bank. thousands more facing and being pushed into poverty that will have lasting impacts on their finances and quality of life. And this is, of course, like this is not something temporary. This is something for the long term, and that's why it's necessary. Once again, we pay our taxes to have a functioning government. If government doesn't function, then what's the point of it? What's the point in paying taxes? What's the point in having these highly paid individuals? And of course, what did the Tories, what did Parliament do? It gave itself a over £2,000 bonus increase. So the MPs get their bonus, but the public get a cut. And the MPs are doing quite well for themselves anyway, because if they eat in the Parliament, they get a discount. They get, I think it was Ian Paisley Jr. from the DUP in Northern Ireland. In 2020, I think it was, he had expenses of something like £250,000. £250,000 in expenses. What was he doing? Was he flying, in one of Abramovich's planes to London? Was he staying on a yacht? What was he doing with that money? And how did you spend £250,000? The Parliament should say, I'm sorry, Ian, you're too expensive. We'll have to let you go. We can't afford you. There should be a cap. Like, of course, there are MPs who are far away, like in Northern Ireland or in Scotland, who have to travel. But £250,000. There needs to be a limit. Guy Fawkes did did nothing wrong. He got caught. That was his mistake. On top of all this, the Tories are going to reduce the civil service. Yes, Jacob Rees-Mogg was talking about firing 40,000 civil servants. Now, of course, the Brexiteers and the right wing will, oh yeah, that's wonderful, cutting costs, yes, waste. But I think the vast majority of these civil servants are necessary for the bureaucracy. If you want to have a bureaucracy in order to make sure that people get their payments, their welfare on time, that they receive the correct welfare, that they receive these uplifts or cuts or whatever, even if it's cuts, you need a bureaucracy behind that. If you take that away, then it just creates more problems for the people who are trying to get access to what they're entitled to. And this is something that we have to move away from. This idea that entitlement is something negative. Entitlement is neutral. If you're entitled to something, you should get it. We're almost taught, I think many of us growing up, taught that if being on welfare is a bad thing. You're somehow lazy or a scrounger. And of course, how do people come to that conclusion? By being brainwashed, by being primed by right-wing press. They pour this poison into people's ears. The only people on benefits, they're all lazy people. They don't want to work. They're a sponge on the state. And they'll ignore the real problem of corruption, which is much more expensive. But as I said on other occasions, when you're spending money on people, it's always regarded as a cost. When you're spending money on other things, you either don't talk about the cost or you say it's an investment. So guys, we're at the end of the stream for tonight. I want to say thanks to everyone who came on. Thanks for all of the super chats. Greatly appreciate it. Thank you so much. Thanks to the moderators. They're doing a wonderful job. See you. Well, before we finish, we have our one for the road. Remember to check out the post-stream chat on Discord. If you're a patron, and I'll see you on Friday, same bad time, same bad channel, and have a good week. But I hope you enjoy this. Sorry, it's the Daily Mail, but this is a funny clip. If it loads. Why isn't it loading?
Yes, that was a particularly grave insult in your Lordship's house. Well, I'm afraid I think this statutory instrument is technically flawed. Now, the basis of the statutory instrument is that plants that could have been produced naturally, typically very measured and very calm as you would usually expect. But what...
Okay. Oh, bring back the image. See this guy here? I don't know why they keep getting rid of the image. But there's a guy... Let me just mute it. You can see. There's a guy on the left who's asleep in the House of Lords. You know, probably in the afternoon you get a good big meal for free or close to free in the House of Lords, and then you go in and, you know, there are politicians blabbing and blabbing about, you know, plants or how the plants go. And then, hold on, I think he woke up.
What this means. And I thank the Noble Lord the Minister for arranging a meeting with himself, his officials, experts and a number of NGOs with whom I've been working on this.
I'm sorry, but the Noble Lord was fast asleep for the entire duration of the Minister's speech. He really should not participate in this debate, having failed to take advantage of the ability to hear it. I'm afraid the Noble Lord was fast asleep for the entirety of the Minister's opening speech. Well, I had to send a note to you in order to wake you up by the doorkeeper.
Remember, it was boring. Okay, it was a boring speech, so he nodded off. You know, it happens to the best of us. So I hope nobody fell asleep during the live stream. Then, if that's the case, I need to, you know, take out a what do you call those horns you use at football matches? Something like that. Tweet that from time to time. So, guys, he got dealt. Yes. So, guys, have a great week. Stay safe. I'll see you on Friday. Be careful, be safe, and take care. And I'll see you on Friday. Same bad time, same bad channel. And those who are on Discord or on Patreon, I'll see you after the stream. Good night.